Hello, welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy. And let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better. Thanks for being here with me and for drawing along with me today. We've got our 6B pencil. It's kind of standing by. If you had a choice between these pencils, I'd probably just go ahead and use the 6B. This is a nice layout pencil, the number 2 pencil or the HB pencil, but it never goes really dark. And so this one, you can do light things with it too by just not pressing as hard. And the first thing we want to do is establish our composition, our size. Where do we want everything to go? Establish where I want things to go by a mark. Somewhere towards the top of the paper, you want to make a little mark and say, this is where I want the head to go. So you just establish that size up there towards the top. And you want to give a little bit of breadth to her. So over here, you want a little more space on the left side than you do on the right side. And we can almost touch that edge over here, but we want more space over here. Okay, so once we got it composed, so we can come over and say, okay, if that's where her head goes, maybe we want that arm about right up in there. This is going to come down here. This arm's only going to go over to this side. Want to leave a little bit more space over here. The owl, on the other hand, maybe that owl's going to touch over here. So we're just establishing where everything goes. And once we have our size, hopefully we can start. There's kind of a vision that we have, and we can start going, well, okay, I want that head over here, about right in there somewhere. It's not straight up and down. It has a slight angle to it. Of course, there's hair it's hard to see anything beyond that hair, so you can just kind of throw that in. Now, owl, remember our eyes are just about in the middle of our head. So as we kind of look down here and we go, okay, our eyes are about right in there somewhere. Her eyes are slightly open. I'll show you how to do those here in a second. And then we've got the owl over here. So there's our owl head, his little body. I might want to do that a little bit larger. And that wing is going to come down almost to the end of that page. That's a long wing. So you can kind of just drive that down. Put in a simple shape. This isn't perfect. I mean, like his wing isn't straight, but that's okay. We're just establishing where everything goes. I'm just throwing in the simple shapes of her hand. Just this kind of triangular shape right there for her hand. It's got fingers that come out over there. Wrist. The arm comes down almost to the tip of his wing. So her arm would almost come down that far. And that kind of helps me to see too. Is that wing too long? Might be just slightly too long. So I might have to angle that down a little bit. Try to make it as large as you can. Your subject matter should touch or come close to touching 3 of the 4 sides. So since our object is moved over this way just a little bit for good composition, that's kind of where we want it to go. And I may want to just throw in some of the wrinkles like of her dress. If you come down right off her nose, if her nose is about right in here somewhere, and you come right straight off that nose, there's a wrinkle that kind of comes down there. And again, we're not perfect. Nothing here is perfect. Now that I have my size, I'm just going to do a little shading. This is going to help me to get some of my proportions. And I can always change this. Remember, everything is superficial. It's on the surface. All of this can be easily changed. We can adjust this later, okay? Just try to get in as much information. This gets us our point of reference. Some people pick this up really easily, very quickly, and other people really struggle with it. It's just a lot of practice. Trying to get it to do what you want it to do. I'm going to just adjust where the wing goes. It's not important if your feathers are right on, but it is important that you get the eyes and the mouth and whatever in the right place. Nobody's going to worry too much about where the feathers are. But if you put the eye in the wrong place, then everybody knows it. And they'll tell you about it too. Oh, you got the eye in the wrong place. Try to draw quickly too. Your mind really does. It kind of figures things out. And the quicker you go, the more it pays attention. So now everything is still on the surface, still not permanent. We haven't drawn any hard lines. So now you can go back into it and go, okay, is this about where I wanted it? Is it? About in the right position? Is it about the right? Look at the eyes, the nose. I really haven't drawn anything other than just some basic shadows. Now, once you think it's pretty darn close, you can take your kneaded eraser and clean up anything. You can clean up some edges or lines. Whatever you feel like you need to do. And I'm going to take my cotton swab here and just go over some of those shadows and just kind of smooth them out. So now I'm just kind of smoothing things out, looking at those values, those shadows again. And it almost looks like I'm drawing some more, but I'm really not. They're just the smooth shadows. I'm just smoothing it out. And I guess in a little way I am kind of drawing, because I'm just trying to pick out where those shadows go. I'm using my cotton swab to get some of those nice soft shadows. It's amazing how much character you can get from just a really thin, light, soft shadow. In fact, that's kind of what makes us us, are the details, the small details. because everybody's got two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, but they're all different shapes or sizes, and it's those slight details that make us up. Our personality, our uniqueness. When I'm done here, I can look at it and go, oh, that's, the nose is too long or too short or whatever, and I can adjust it. Can you adjust it with my kneaded eraser? Well, I still have my point of reference. This can be a very quick way of drawing. It's interesting, the further you get away from the face, the more loose you can be. The hair, a lot of people really worry about hair, but in reality, it's just shapes of dark and light. Again, the important thing here is trying to get your proportions correct. And just adjust and adjust. As you draw, kind of look at your scrap, look at your references, then decide, is that too big, too small? Your intuition is probably pretty darn good. So I would follow those intuitions, those feelings. Also, as you're going along, especially when you're doing like the owl, there's a grain that goes to his feathers. And if you follow the grain with your cotton swab, then you get this kind of streaky look, or this kind of direction for the feathers. And even though there's a lot more that we need to do to it, it's a good start. If you have a little bit of graphite on your cotton swab, you can do some of those really soft wrinkles in her dress. And all those little sketchy lines kind of disappear because you just kind of blend them away. I'm going to look at the wing and do some dark and light areas of the wing. That number 2 pencil. And the little markings on the owl's wings, I want them to kind of line up, but I don't want to have to do them individually. So I'm just going to put some little guidelines here for them, and then I can come back into it and darken in some little areas. Just keep adjusting, whatever you feel like you need to adjust. Sometimes I just go in circles, other times I kind of go towards the pattern or the grain. In hair, I do the same thing. I go towards the grain of the hair. Sometimes in flesh tones, I just do little circles. So once you've got your image, and it's pretty close to what you want it, it's never going to be perfect, by the way. Just is the nature of the beast. But ultimately, you're the one that you have to please. Once I've got my layout and pretty much everything is the way I want it, I can get rid of that number 2 pencil. I've got enough light graphite on there, some of those light tones and light edges. Now I need to have some contrast. I need to make that really pop, make it stand out. So I'm going to use my 6B pencil. There's different modes of thought on this. You can keep doing this and just kind of refine, or you can go into it and start doing details. If you go to YouTube, there's a bunch of artists that'll start out with like the pupil of the eye, and they just detail as it kind of comes out. That's one way of doing it. It's kind of up to you how you do it, whatever you're comfortable with. I've done that before. But I think overall easier and faster is this way, where you kind of started out and now you go, okay, now I need some darker darks. So you can go into it and you can pick out where some of those darker darks go and throw those in. Because now you already have your map, you already have it figured out where everything goes. I'm just going to go in with my 6B, pick out the darkest areas first. And add more graphite. Now I've already got some smoothness in there, so this graphite, if I were to take this and smooth it out with my cotton swab, it's still going to smooth out and go pretty smooth. The more you add to it, the smoother it'll get. When you're doing hair, go ahead and just do the little streaky parts, but just do the darker shadows where they go. Don't worry about following that line all the way through. This is kind of the standard of hair. Too many people get so concerned that the hair flows, that the little lines and everything connect. With drawing, you're the illusion that it flows, the illusion that there's form there. So even hair, you've got that illusion that it's flowing. It's just dark and light. You can use that feathered line. So there's the idea of a feathered line is where you kind of drop your pencil in, you flip it, and so it goes dark and then light as it kind of comes up off the page. That's awesome for hair, for feathers, for fur. And when you blend it, it gives it a nice soft edge. So you may want to practice that feathered line. That's what I'm doing in the hair. Just these little feathered lines. I know I'm going to blend it, so I don't worry about the softness of it right now. It'll get soft. You can even have little lines kind of coming out and just out and about. If you like that idea that some of those hairs are moving out away from it, couple little lines. You don't even have to have them attached. They can just be floating out there somewhere. Woo, float, little line floating out there. Because when you blend it, then it'll look like it's kind of there. Sometimes you'll lose a little bit of hair in the shadows or something, and you pick it up a little bit later. So your lines are kind of the same way. Just try to get your lines to go the direction the hair flows. You got it. Eyebrows are just little hairs, so you can do the same thing, but just little lines. And we may want to darken that a little bit too later on. So your pupils are not quite round. Where your iris is, there's a lens, and so it's a little bulbous. So when it presses against your eyelid, it'll kind of come down and put a little stronger crease in your eyelid. And so you can kind of just go into it and say, okay, there's a little bit of her pupil, her iris part, like right down in there. She's kind of looking down. And when we blend that, here's her tear duct right there. And there's a little bit of value that goes up in there. We're going to just blend all that. You don't need a line in there either. You just darken in just a little shape where the eye goes. The rest of it we'll figure out. There's always going to be a little shadow under that eyelid too. Remember, sometimes it's good not to use the tip of your pencil because that's a hard line. Sometimes you don't want that hard line. Maybe you just want a soft little shadow that's there. Her mouth is slightly open too, so again, you could do a little dark edge up here. The corners of your mouth are going to be a little darker anyway. So you can just do a little darker edge there, a little darker edge over here. Then when you blend it, it'll make it look like the mouth is open with a little bit of shadow in there. So you can do that. You can just take that and blend that a little bit. There's your lips. There's your teeth. Blending with the cotton swab there. In the eye, there are these little wrinkles. The older you get, the more you got in there. But you don't want to draw in those wrinkles. If you draw those in, then they look too old. Nobody likes to have wrinkles. So what you do is you take your cotton swab, you do your little shadows, then you pull up those wrinkles out with your kneaded eraser. Just come back in and touch it. And just there's a little wrinkle right there, a little wrinkle over the eye. Those wrinkles are there. You can slightly see them, but you don't draw them in. You use shadows. And they're soft. You don't have to I have to do hard lines for them. The last thing you do on the eye is the eyelashes, because they cover up all those shadows. And then that eye looks slightly open. So the important part here is the face. That's our emphasis area, both her face and the owl face. So you spend a little extra time, a little extra effort to get those things to looking right. Then everything else is going to fall into place. Remember, we're not trying to draw hard lines around things. So even like around the owl, you just let his head take care of itself. It will. A little bit of value here. Even if you lose edges here and there, it's okay. It makes it soft. And do the same thing with that other eye. There's a little bit of darkness where her pupil goes, her iris. A little shadow underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and blend that and do the same thing I did with this other eye. Notice I didn't draw a line around the lips either. I'm just doing the shadows on the corners of the mouth, and then I'll take my cotton swab, and you get the shape of the lip with your cotton swab. Your lips are very soft. You know, there's no hard edge around your lips. Even the shadows underneath, little zigzaggy shadows, and then blend them back and forth. If you need to clean them up, you can clean up with your kneaded eraser. I kind of relax a little bit once I get the faces done. You know, those are the important spots, and everybody's looking at the faces. Once you get those done, you can relax a little bit. Go a little faster on the rest of it. People aren't paying as close attention to those things. And for me, it's the face that's important. Anyway, it's the fun part. So once you get the faces done, breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, that part's done. Now I can move on. Again, you can take this as far as you want it to go. You can work on this until it's photographic if you want to. When I want to go fast, I'll switch up to this mode. Remember, when you're like this is a lot faster. Your elbow and your shoulder make better lines. So a couple of things that I need to make sure are nice. The hand, that's one of them. The rest of it can really go kind of fast. When you're doing hands too, just be aware that you don't need everything in there. Like the fingers, you can almost simplify them so much that they're just a little shadow at the beginning, a little shadow at the end. Little tip. But things like fingernails, people start worrying about fingernails. Don't worry about fingernails. If you have to, you can just put in a little shape, just where the fingernail kind of turns towards the cuticle, which is that little part where it comes out of the skin. Usually it's a little darker right there, so you can put a little edge, and then that's it. When you blend it, take your kneaded eraser and touch the tip of the finger, and you got your fingernail. And that's really about all there is to it. If you draw all those shadows, then your object, whatever it is, will come through. Don't need to put edges around it. And your viewer doesn't want to see all those edges anyway. Sometimes they like to lose the edge. Sometimes that's a lot of fun to imagine lines. And today we have a little bit more time in this class than other classes. So we should be able to get through this. What I'm doing is feathers in the shadowy areas. I can see they're kind of dark, so I'm just doing these little, I guess you'd call it like a fish scale, kind of a up and down kind of thing. Knowing that when I blend it, it's going to kind of start looking more like the feather. Little spots here and there that you just with the side of your pencil, just kind of blend it in, knowing that you're going to have to come back into it with your kneaded eraser and lighten some things and darken some things. But you want to get the overall gist first. So now, as I blend it, I can pick up all that graphite. Don't be afraid to leave some areas out, especially in the hair. Because you've got little shines, little highlights. And if you forget to leave them out, or if you don't take them out, take your kneaded eraser and just come back into it. Sometimes you can draw as much with your kneaded eraser as you can with your pencil. And some of those really light hairs that kind of come out away from the head, you can do that with your cotton swab. Make them nice and soft. So then what I do is I just come back in with my kneaded eraser, pull out some highlights. Just little streaks. I'll give it that little hair kind of a feel. don't need many, just a few here and there. Notice how I've lost some of the line on his wing. That's okay, because that wing kind of blends in with her shirt there. You kind of don't see where it starts and stops. That's okay. If that's what you see, do it. It's interesting. It's all about interest. It's all about making it look interesting. I'm using my cotton swab to get all the little subtle shadows in the hand, in the dress, even in the owl. You just kind of blend it out. Wait till we get into charcoal. Charcoal is easy to blend. You get a whole lot more. Charcoal is faster. It's a little messier because it's on the surface more. I don't like to get caught up too much in patterns. Some artists really like to do patterns and textures and things, and kind of try to simplify it as much as I can. So there's a feather. Here's a feather. There's a feather. You can also use tortillons if you'd like. Those are those little wound paper that you can buy. I like cotton swabs. They're cheap, easy to get. And the cheaper ones are even better for drying because they're not as cottony. They're a little more dense. They work out best. Then you can take your kneaded eraser and just touch little light areas in the feathers. And that's how you get your feathers. And they're soft. last thing I do to really increase my darks and lights is I'll go in there with my graphite, my 6B pencil, and darken in any areas that I want to really pop. So high contrast is going to make it kind of pop, kind of be interesting. And if you're doing portraits, this is a good way to get your details as well. Not that we're really doing a portrait here, but we can make her look kind of like her. Some of those I'm going to leave very dark, and others I'm going to blend a little bit. So the very last thing, like this on her cheek, I need to blend that. So I'm just going to grab that and blend that out. Need to just go a little softer there. But some of this stuff in the eye right there, I'm just going to leave it dark. Other parts, I need to blend them. Here's where I lighten up the hands, touch the little parts of where the fingernails are. Last thing you want to do after you've got in your darks, go back into it with your kneaded eraser and just pick out any lights. That contrast between the dark and the light is very important to have. Last thing you want to do is sign this too. So make sure you sign it. That's your copyright. That's your claim to the picture. A good place for that would be right under his wing, right there, or over here by her elbow. That would be another place. So I'm just going to sign it right in here. And thanks for coming along on this little art journey with me today. I know it's not easy. Drawing is not an easy thing. But I think in the end, it relaxes you. It gives you an appreciation for art. And I think art overall makes life better. Hope you have a lovely day.